My name is Lyle Dandridge. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, and my current position, I'm the teacher retention specialist for my school district. No, not at all. I was going to school to be a conservation biologist, and it was in working with the school district. I was actually placed into classrooms. It was those experiences that kind of steered me towards being an actual classroom teacher. Race has always been like a prevalent part of my experience in education. I identify as a Black male. My parents really emphasized the importance of education, and they worked really hard to put me in some of the better schools. That often meant being like the only Black kid or the only Black male. That was a big part of my identity throughout my educational experience, not with a lot of people that looked like me. Found myself, in classes like honors math, honors science classes, and my peers made it seem like, being in these honors classes was like a white thing to do, right? You're in this class with all the white kids, like, you're being white. It's always that narrative of being good in particular classes meant like not being true to my Blackness. In my head, I was always thinking like, man, I shouldn't have to do that. I don't think that this makes me less Black. That made me aspire to doing something where I could change that image. So for me, what that actually looked like was going into conservation biology field, because I had the vision to get on TV and be like a Black crocodile hunter, have all of this science knowledge, but show up how I showed up. My students always know me as the teacher who wears Timberlands to school and have forearm tattoos. I can use the slang that they use, but I can also explain some in-depth science process. I wanted to present that image more broadly, because it's not enough to point out Black and brown people that are doing these things in these academic spaces. But if the students look at you and say, like, you look like me, but you don't sound like me, you don't talk like me, you don't dress like me, how much do we really have in common besides this color? As long as I've been in education, people that look like me weren't really actively going into conservation biology because they didn't see themselves as doing those sorts of things. You get to an age where you're not labeling it as a white thing anymore. Something needed to be done about Black and brown kids being told that they're not being true to themselves by excelling in a particular field. The idea that I could do something about that didn't occur to me until I was in that classroom working with a high school teacher. I had a student that he had to do a lot of raising himself. It was just one day he pulled me to the side, turns his head to like looking at me like, yo, you a scientist? And I was like, now we've been together for about 5 or 6 months now. I was hoping you know the answer to that already, but I was like, yeah, I am. And he was like, I could be a scientist? I just looked at him and I was like, yeah, you sure can, man. Like, you sure can. If you want to, there's no reason you can't. And then he just was like looking at me, and then he just was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a scientist. Whether or not he actually ever did isn't important. The fact that I saw him see me and see himself, realize that like that was an option for him, was, to me, touched me in a different place. The idea of kids seeing that was powerful, and that kind of changed whatever I thought I was going to be doing. My mom is a doctor, and she always stressed the importance of education. I'd have to give her top honors for that. In terms of a teacher, I don't have a lot of teachers that I felt were obstructing me. They showed up, they did their job, they didn't really treat me any different. But I did have one teacher, Mrs. Toth. Time my math, she's the first person that always pops in my head. She was my math teacher in high school. She was just a cool person, an older white female, and she drove this really cool sports car. She just had like a swag about her, and she, like a really nice sports car. She was always very supportive of me and pushed me. I always felt like she just wanted me to succeed. I mean, I had some good teachers, but yeah, Miss Toth always stands out to me as somebody who, even not being from the same background, just kind of like saw me and wanted to push me. So I attribute her to being one of my favorite teachers, and somebody who even made that seem like something I would want to do. It's one of those delayed gratification things, right? I have regular contact with a handful of students that, seen come through. When I listen to them talk about, how much one conversation meant to them or how much I helped with this thing or how pushing them has resulted in whatever they're doing now, it makes up for all the days that somebody would have given me a hard time. In a strange way, it's kind of like parenting. Your kids always tell you how much they appreciate you either. So for me, as a parent, teaching high school students, there's so much overlap. The two things reinforce each other. When I feel myself growing as a teacher, it makes me reflect on where I might be lacking in my parenting, right? And then vice versa. In a strange way, like you spend so much time with these kids, if you give them respect, right, and then you get it back, it's such a powerful role. It's not just teaching. It's a shame that people look at it that way. For me, it's one of the things that has given my life purpose, to have that effect on young people and kind of just help them navigate through a tough time in their life. I've had some students with some tough life experiences, and just being able to walk with somebody through some of those times, right, has really helped me to grow as a person. I wouldn't give it up for anything. It's not easy. Easy in the sense that people say, oh, I can just go and do this, and if that doesn't work, I'll go and be a teacher. I think that's the wrong lens. I don't think that teaching is hard in the sense of, when I think about teaching being hard, I think about you're not just a teacher. The job is parenting, being a therapist. You do it from your heart. You have to give a lot of your heart, right? You are really shaping the next generation. It's something that you should go into with that lens. It's not really like a fallback career, because you have so much power over young people's lives. And the reality of it is that a lot of young people are searching for connections with trusted adults outside of their home. And that puts you in that position with vulnerable people who you want to build them up. You want to steer them in the right direction. You want to give them confidence. All of that is wrapped up in a position and is not in the job description. That's what makes it hard, but it's also the thing that makes it beautiful. You can go and learn all of the pedagogy and the best practice, this and that, but I would argue that teaching is really an art. It's something that some people are just born with, that ability to do all of the things that don't show up on the job description. Like, you got to do that stuff that they teach you. Science of it helps you to do your job, but if you don't have the art, you're not going to be a good teacher. Ability to connect with young people, if you don't have the ability to be vulnerable in this, if you don't have ability to intuit and multitask, all of the stuff that really make or break your success and your ability to really leave a lasting impact on somebody, that has to be part of the narrative, right? It's an art and a science, and too often it gets positioned as some fallback career. It's not. I always try to stress that. I want you to know that this is the big picture. It's really about that impact that you are leaving on somebody, because at the end of the day, you remember about 10% of the stuff you learn in school. Most of the stuff, if you don't use it regularly, you have to go back and refresh. So really, it's just about what impact are you leaving on somebody. School is for learning how to be a good person, learn how to listen, learn how to follow directions, learn how to give and take. All of that other stuff that goes into it is what you're actually really doing for these kids. That's my long answer. Yeah.